Hello, boys and girls, and happy summer. I bet it feels good to be out of school. But I hope that you're going to enjoy these fun lessons with me over the course of the summer. So I thought I would start us off with a fun little hands-on project. We are going to build little birdseed bells for birds so that you can hang it up in your yard and watch them eat. It's a little hands-on project. You're going to need a few things, nothing crazy, and let's get started, shall we? Alright, so we're going to need a few things for this project. Nothing that you can't find at home or substitute. We are going to need a mold for the sunflower seeds or the bird seed, which I am using a flower pot. We're going to need some string and a washer. I have a pencil to poke a hole later on, a ruler to measure out some string, I have a coffee cup for mixing, some measuring cups and measuring spoons, you're going to need some flour, some unflavored gelatin. You'll also need birdseed, but all I have is a 50-pound bag, so I didn't haul it in for this video. I have some wax paper, some corn syrup. The recipe called for light corn syrup, but all I had was dark. Either one will work. And a mixing bowl. Now I also have used scissors and tape, which are also not pictured here. So our first step is to measure out the string that we're going to need to hang this birdseed bell. So the instructions that I found called for 2 feet or 24 inches. So I'm just going ahead and roughly measuring out a 12-inch section, pinching it, and then remeasuring it. After I measured out the 24 inches, I took a little extra and cut it, so I was closer to about 28 to 30 inches. You definitely want too much as opposed to too little. So once that string was prepared, I set it aside and I began lining the mold, which was the flower pot, with wax paper. Now, I didn't measure out the wax paper, I just put it over top, just sort of guessed, just so that I knew I had enough that I could press that evenly and tightly down into the mold. I found some duct tape sitting around in the garage, so I'm using that to hold the wax paper on the outside of the flower pot, just to help contain the mess and give me a nicer, cleaner edge when I pack those birdseed in. So once I went ahead and taped that up, I smoothed it out one more time just to be safe. And then I'm going to grab my pencil and poke a hole in the end there. That's going to allow us to thread the string through. Now, I struggled with this for about 2 minutes before I found the easiest way for me. The loop end needs to go through the small hole because that's what we're eventually going to hang it with. So after struggling, I finally got that through, and I pulled it out. You want about 4 to 5 inches of excess there, just enough, whatever you feel comfortable is good for hanging that. And then we're going to leave the excess hang out the side. So that prepares our mold for us here. We're going to go ahead and set that aside and begin mixing the birdseed with the various ingredients. So I took a mixing bowl and I filled it with 1.5 cups of black sunflower seeds, which was the bird seed that I had on hand. You can use any bird seed as long as you use enough to fill the pot. Now, I mixed a 1/4 cup of flour in with that. You just want to stir that in with the seeds or mix it with your hands just to coat them so that they bind to the gelatin better. So here I took a quarter cup of water in a microwavable cup and I heated that up for about 30 to 40 seconds. I recommend a minute, as this tablespoon of gelatin that I added didn't really dissolve quite as much as I liked. I would definitely heat that up and get the water a little bit hotter. So I'm just stirring this vigorously. It took about a minute and a half of stirring until I got everything dissolved right where I wanted it to be. And I brought my birdseed and flour mixture back. And I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of corn syrup to this. And the corn syrup was very sticky, and I would definitely recommend having a little spoon or something you can get in there to scrape that off if you are not planning to mix this by hand. Now you'll see I am mixing this by hand. I thought that was quite fun, but it is very messy. And off camera I went ahead and stirred it a little bit more with a spoon just to get that mixed and make sure that it was all homogeneous in there. So I'm adding my tablespoon of corn syrup. And then I'm going ahead and I'm going to pour the water gelatin mixture in. Now, since mine wasn't too hot, it was okay temperature for mixing. Parents, I would definitely check that if you're going to let your children mix by hand. So I'm just mixing that vigorously, getting that all ready to go. So now once this mixture is ready, I have made sure that I have my string pulled out as far as I want, and I just started packing the birdseed in with a spoon. Now you'll see me pulling up on this string. You definitely want to pull up on the string while you pack the birdseed in here, because you want that to thread through the middle. If the string goes through the side, it'll be too weak and it will break. So once you've packed all of the seed in, you're going to go ahead and put this in the freezer for about an hour to 2 hours to let this firm up. So after leaving this in the freezer, I brought it back out. It is definitely firmed up, but it is still quite soft. So I have this washer here that I am tying the string to. This is going to keep the thread from pulling through and breaking through the birdseed bell. I definitely recommend this. You don't need a giant washer like I used, but you will want something to keep that string from pulling through. So once I had that nice and tight, I peeled back the tape on the wax paper and I'm going to fold it over and just sort of shake that out gently in my hand, and it should pop right out. So you want to be careful when you're pulling the wax paper away. If this is still pretty sticky, parts of the birdseed could come off. Mine luckily came through pretty clean. I only lost a few seeds here and there. And then I took some scissors and just cut the ugly frayed ends off of my string. And our birdseed bell is ready to go. So I hung mine up out back. The squirrels definitely got into it before the birds did. The original instructions recommend waiting 1 to 2 days before hanging it up, and I also recommend that as well. It definitely hardens and becomes more firm after about a day or two of just sitting out at room temperature, but don't set it anywhere you don't want it to stick. I hung mine up in the garage just out of the way. All right, that's all I have for you this week. I'll see you next week, and I hope you had a great time.